Part of the sys structure of a program that I made mention of, which I have explained to the documentation link selection. Then for the definition selection, global declaration selection, main function selection, sub-program selection, I'm going to be explaining it later when we start coding, because if I start to explain it now, it won't be clear. So in order to understand it, we will start coding, then you understand where all these things falls in. As we proceed, you will be hearing me saying syntax. Now I want to describe this syntax so that whenever you hear me make mention of syntax, you understand what I mean by the syntax. So let me explain the word syntax. The syntax simply means a set of rules or protocol that should be followed while writing a sequence of code. So for every function in coding has its own syntax, the rules you should abide or the way you should write the code for it to work. But I'm going to make mention of the general syntax that you need to abide in Arduino while writing your code, and which is semicolon and curly braces. Semicolon. So semicolon is used to end a line of code. So I want you to see semicolon as full stop. Just like whenever you are writing a sentence and you want to tell the reader that this particular line of sentence have ended, you use the full stop to end a particular line of sentence. So that is how it is done in program. For you to tell the compiler that this set of code, this line of code has ended, you use semicolon to end a particular line of code. So here I'm going to show you the syntax of using semicolon in a code. So look at the syntax of using semicolon to end a line of code. Another one is curly braces. So I want to make this as simple as, let me explain this as simple as for you to understand it. Curly braces is used to differentiate two sets of instruction. When you have two different instruction, when I say instruction, I mean your code. So when you have two sets of instruction, in order to differentiate it so that the compiler will understand how your instruction should be executed, you use curly braces. Curly braces will separate the two sets of instruction so that the compiler will understand it. Now look at the example on the screen where I use curly braces to differentiate two sets of instruction. The upper one is the first instruction, while the lower one is the second instruction. So when the compiler starts to execute our program and see this opening and closing curly braces and our code inside it, it will first execute that one. It will see it as first instruction before going to the second one. So if we have two different instructions, the compiler will execute it based on our curly braces. But if we don't make use of that curly braces, the compiler will treat it as one set of instruction. Another thing I want to make mention of is that compiler execute program based on the sequence. So what do I mean by sequence? The sequence, what I mean by sequence is the way you arrange your instruction, the one that comes first and the one that comes last. So, and I'll go in depth when we go in depth in our course. You will understand how to bypass some certain set of instructions, some certain set of sequence instruction using a conditional function. So just know that the way compiler executes our program is based on sequence. The form, the one that comes first, the one that comes second, the one that comes third. So the compiler cannot execute the code from first to third. It will execute it from first, second, third, fourth, fifth, just like that. That is why it is called sequence. So if you want to execute the first code and go to the fourth code, that means you have to use what we call conditional function. When that conditional function means when you give the compiler a condition that will make it to jump from the first instruction to the fourth instruction. So you will get we will talk about it when we go in depth in this course.